Hi everyone, happy learning. In this video, we are going to discuss exception handling in Java. So what we are going to discuss here is first introduction to Java exception, then types of exception and hierarchy of exception class in Java. So exception. First we should understand what is exception. So exception is nothing but runtime error. So runtime error which interrupts the normal flow of the program. So in other words, exception, an unexpected event that occurs during program execution. We call it as exception. This exception, that is unexpected event, it affects the flow of the program instruction, which can cause the program to terminate abnormally, abruptly. So that is called exception. So exception means abnormal condition, unexpected event. It will terminate the flow of execution, flow of the program execution. So what will happen? The program will terminate abruptly. It should not happen. To avoid such kind of situation, we have a special mechanism in Java. We call it as exception handling mechanism. So exception handling is a built-in concept in Java. They have given that option to handle those kind of exception. So before to move on to that exception, exception means different types of error condition. There are two types of error. First, we should understand what is error. So, two types of error. One is compile time error, another one is runtime error. So, there are two types of errors. So, compile time error. There are two types of compile time error. One is syntax error, another one is semantic error. Syntax error, another one is semantic error. So, syntax error. What is syntax error? Suppose if I am declaring variable declaration. Okay, so variable declaration in general, I will declare variable as int a. Okay, so while declaring int a, this is the syntax to declare variable. Suppose if I am missing t, this is called syntax error. This is called syntax error. So the syntax is wrong. So if you are declaring int a, this is the correct syntax. If you declare instead of, if you are missing t or n something, so it is called syntax error. So syntax error, and next one is semantic error. This compile time error, we have two types of error. One is compile time error, another one is runtime error. When we talk about compile time error, two types of errors are there: syntax error and semantic error. What do you mean by syntax error? Syntax error in the sense we have some kind of keywords in Java. If you are writing those syntax wrongly, some spelling mistake, something will happen. For that we call it as syntax error. Another example for syntax error is, suppose I have int a. I declared int a. Okay. So int a, I declared variable int a. Then after some coding, some lines, again I am declaring int a. Again I am declaring one more variable, the same variable, again I am declaring. This is also called syntax error. So syntax error. Then what about semantic error? Semantic error means in the logic, if you are doing some error, that is called semantic error. So compile time error means that error will be identified, then we have to rectify. That program will not execute. Compiler will show error. Then next is runtime error. What do you mean by runtime error? That runtime error is nothing but exception. Runtime error is nothing but exception. So exception means abnormal condition. So unexpected event that will lead to program termination, or abruptly it will terminate the program. So to avoid such kind of situation, we have to handle the exception. There are two types of exceptions: built-in exception and user-defined exception. So built-in exception. When we talk about built-in exception, Built-in exception, two types of exceptions are there under built-in exception: checked exception, unchecked exception. We will discuss those things in upcoming video. So built-in exception, two types: checked and unchecked. You should remember under built-in exception we have two types of exception: checked exception and another one is unchecked exception. So next one is user defined exception. So built-in exception, already they have defined exception. So during compile time, it will check those kind of exception. Okay, that is checked exception. So user defined exception, user can create exception. We have a class called exception class in Java. We have exception class in Java. Exception class in Java. So we can create class, exception class. How will you create exception class? That is user defined exception. User can create class name. How will you create class in Java? Class name. So class name, I can use any name: demo exception, then this is the class. I can create class in Java using class keyword. So if we want to create exception class, we can use inheritance concept: extends exception. So we can create our own class. This is called custom exception or user defined exception. User defined exception. So user can define their own exception, depends on the requirement, depends on the scenario. User can create their own exception. Okay, these are all the basic things with respect to exception. Then next one is Java exception. Then what is exception? An exception is an unexpected event that occurs during program execution. We have already discussed that is unexpected thing. So it affects the flow of the program instruction, which can cause the program to terminate abruptly. So what are all the cases? Invalid user input, that is also will come under exception. User is giving invalid input. Suppose user has to enter numeric value. If he is entering string value, that is also exception. Program will not execute. That is called exception. That is not syntax error. That is called exception, abnormal condition. So after taking the string value, if you want to add two numbers, if you are giving string as input, that is invalid user input. Device failure. Sometimes device may failure. Then loss of network connection, physical limitation. So if you want to store information, if you want to store data in the disk, that is the out of disk memory, so you can't store information. Then code error, if any error, opening an unavailable file. The file is not there, but you are trying to open that file. These conditions, all conditions will come under exception. Then next one is how to handle exception in Java. So you can handle exception. Suppose in the general thing, if you want to have more clear about exception, suppose file is not available. If that particular file f1 is not available, then what we have to do? We have to display some information. We have to display some code here. File is not available. Okay, file not available. Else, if file is available, whatever you want to do, some processing, you can open file, you can open and update, so many things you can do. Update the file. This is general if else condition. You can use if else to handle those conditions. In Java, we have effectively you can handle those kind of situation using exception class, built-in class available. So exception class. So how to handle exception using try catch block. Here we have five keywords to manage exception. The first one is try, then second one is catch, then third one is finally, and the fourth one is throw, then fifth one is throws. So if you look into all those things, these are the five keywords to manage exception. We are going to handle such kind of situation, such kind of exceptions, abnormal condition using these five keywords in Java: try, catch, finally, throws, and throw. Okay. So Java is case sensitive. So try small letter, all small letter only, not capital letter. Okay, catch, then finally, and throw, and throws. So you have to remember these five keywords. Now, try catch block. So what is the syntax? In general case, suppose if I am writing program, I am going to use online compiler to demonstrate the same thing. So online compiler, suppose this is the, I'll come to this later. Okay, I have online compiler. What I am going to do, I am going to create, suppose if I am going to use online compiler, this is the online compiler. So if you run this code, this is the basic structure of Java. Class name, hello world is the class name, public static void main, system.out.println hello world. So it is displaying that hello world string using system.out.println. Now what I am going to do, I am going to declare two variables. So number 1 and number 2. Number 1 is 5 and number 2 is equal to some number. Okay. This is number 1 is 25. Then number 2 is 5. So I am going to divide these two numbers. I am going to store that number in result variable. So result is equal to number 1 divided by number 2. So I am going to print this result in that is, I am going to print this result. Okay, result is equal to plus result. Okay, so if you run this program, what will be the output? If you see this, number 1 is 25, number 2 is 5, then result variable 25 divided by 5. This is fine. Okay. Then next, if I change this value also, if I change this value as 45, again I will get some value. No issues. Right. 9. Suppose numerator and denominator. Sometimes by mistake, if I am assigning denominator 0, what is the result? Obviously, it is infinite value. You can't, not infinite, you can't define it. So you can't divide the number by 0. So while what will happen? Now I'll try to run this program. This is called unexpected event. So I should not give 0 in the denominator. But unexpectedly I have given. What will happen? It will terminate the program. If you see in this output panel, what will happen? Exception. We call it as exception. Abnormal condition happened. What is that abnormal condition? I am trying to divide a number by 0. So it should not happen. So it is not possible. So exception, how Java is handling. So we have default exception handling in Java. So what it will happen? It will terminate the program. So it is displaying exception in thread main because I have written all those things inside main method. So what is that exception? Arithmetic exception. So divide by 0. This is divide by 0. So I am trying to divide by 0. So what I am going to do? I want to handle this exception. How to handle this exception? So in Java, we have a mechanism called exception handling mechanism. Okay, exception handling. So how to handle this exception? Using try catch block. This is the syntax for try catch block. So whatever statements we are expecting, it may raise exception. Abnormal condition can happen. Those kind of statement should be inside try block. So if exception occurs, this catch block will handle those exception. This is the general syntax of try catch block. If you have try block, you should have corresponding catch block. Without catch, try, you can't have try block only. So if you have try block, we should have corresponding catch block, at least one. You can have multiple catch block. You can have multiple catch block for a single try, but if you have one try block, you should have at least one catch block. Okay, so try catch, this is the syntax: try, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, then catch. Then we have to pass one parameter, that is object. What kind of exception we are going to handle, that is called class. So we have to pass object as parameters. Then inside that we can specify some statement. We can handle those exception. So here in this code, if you look into this code, see, now I'm going to handle this exception. How to handle this exception? So I know sometimes here I have given assigned value directly. So user can enter the value integer.parseInt. Using that statement, you can take input from the user next int. So using scanner class, then you can convert using integer.parseInt. So what we are going to do, I may expect, okay, this code in this line, result is equal to number 1 to number 2. Sometimes number 2 may be 0. Unknowingly user can enter. Unknowingly we may assign 0. So I want to handle those kind of situation. So program should not terminate. It should continue the program up to end. So what I am going to do here, I am going to create try block. Within that try block, I have given this statement. This statement may generate error. So I am expecting that one. This statement may create error, exception, abnormal condition. So this statement I have given inside catch block. So now what I am going to do, if you try to run this program, what will happen? Error. Why? Because try without catch. That's why I have mentioned already. If you have try block, at least one catch should be there. One catch block should be there. So this is the syntax. Catch. Okay. So I am going to catch exception. I am going to catch exception. Exception is a class. So exception E. We have to here. See, system.out.println, it is outside catch block. It is outside catch block. So this is exception class. This is exception, right? Exception, divide by 0. Divide by, we can give any information. Divide by 0 error. For our understanding whether this block is executed or not, I have given. Now, if you run this program, the earlier one, I didn't handle exception using try catch block. Simply I have given directly result is equal to number 1 by number 2. So it has given arithmetic, that is 0 divide by 0. Now I am going to run this program. Program will not terminate. Program will not terminate. So here, see, in the previous one, divide by 0 error. So divide by 0 error, because here we are trying to divide that number by 0. So system next statement didn't execute. here result. Next statement, program will follow sequential execution. So here after this statement, result is equal to number 1 divided by number 2. Anyway, exception occur because this is in try block. It will not follow the sequential execution. It will not come to next statement. What will happen? If exception happens, this try will redirect to catch block. Here I have system.out.println divide by 0 error. So it displays that. It handles that exception. So that means it redirecting to the catch block. It will not terminate the program. Then after catch block, it will follow the normal execution, sequential execution. That means system.out.println hello world is displayed. Clear? Now if I give one more statement, again the same thing. Same thing. So it will continue the execution up to end. Okay. It will continue that execution up to not exist. So capital S, sorry. Capital S. Here I have to give capital S. If you run this program, it will work. See hello world 2 times. So what is the beauty of this exception handling? It will not terminate the program abruptly. It will handle the exception. Then it will follow the normal flow of the execution. So try and catch block. Then one more we have in this, that is finally block. Finally block. The next keyword. First keyword is I have already told you we have 5 instruction, 5 keywords. So 5 keywords in the sense try, catch, finally, throw and throws. This is the general syntax about try catch block. So next one is exception handling. It will handle runtime exception, error. There are 2 exception hierarchy. When we talk about exception, there are 2 things are there. One is error, another one is exception. One is error, another one is exception. What do you mean by error? So it will indicate the serious problem that application should not try to catch. We can't handle those errors. Errors cannot be handled by programmer. Application cannot handle. So example, error means irrecoverable condition. Irrecoverable condition. It is not possible to recover that condition. So we call it as error. 2 types are there, error and exception. So error means irrecoverable condition. Example, Java virtual machine running out of memory. We can't do anything from our end, application side. Memory leaks, stack overflow error, library incompatibility. Suppose we are using some libraries that is not compatible with this Java. So what we can't handle those. We call it as error. That means that is beyond our control. We should not try to handle errors. That is beyond the control of programmer. We call it as error. Next one is exception. We all familiar with exception. Exception is an unwanted or unexpected event which occurs during the execution of the program at runtime. That's why we call it as a runtime exception. Exception means a runtime error. Okay. Then this is the exception hierarchy. So when we talk about exception hierarchy, object is the base class. In Java, object is the base class. So we have a subclass called throwable class. Error and exception, these 2 classes will come under throwable class. So throwable is the base class for exception and error. So object is the base class. In Java, object is the base class. Then we have a subclass called throwable class under object. So under throwable, we have 2 classes, exception class and error. What do you mean by exception? That is runtime error. So 2 types of error, checked exception, unchecked exception. So this is example. IO or compile time exception, IO exception or compile time exception, and unchecked exception in the sense runtime exception. Error we have already discussed, that is error means irrecoverable condition, virtual machine error. Okay. Then these things we have already discussed: built-in exception, checked exception, unchecked exception, then user-defined exception. So checked and unchecked exception, user-defined exception. What do you mean by built-in exception? Built-in exception in the sense exceptions are available in Java libraries. Already it is there in Java libraries. So depends on the situation, we can make use of those libraries, those classes. So built-in exception. So built-in exception, example, arithmetic exception. Just now we have discussed arithmetic exception, that is divide by zero error. Divide by zero error will come under arithmetic exception. Then array index out of bound exception. These are all built-in exception. Array index out of bound exception. So for that thing, suppose I'm declaring array integer of int array, okay, int a. So I am going to initialize value. I have initialized value 1. Then what I am going to do now? So I have created array. I have initialized. I have created array and I have initialized also. Now what will happen? Now I am trying to assign value a of 15 is equal to 30. So here I have initialized value, automatically it will take array size as 1, okay, index 0. So a of 0 I can change. Now value of a of 0 is 1. So if you are trying to change this value as 20, it will accept. But what I am going to do, I am going to change the value, the index 15, that means 0 to 15, 15th position. That is 16th position I am going to change. If I give 20, what will happen? This is array index out of bounds, because we have generated array, we have given array size as 1, because we have initialized value with 1. So that array contains only one value. Otherwise you can give 1 comma 1 comma 2 comma 3. Now what is the size of the array? 3. It will start from index 0 1 2. Suppose if you are trying to access fourth index 4 is equal to 30, it will give you error. It will terminate the program. It will abruptly terminate the program. That normal flow or execution of the program will stop. So to avoid such kind of problems, we go for exception handling in Java, that is try catch block. So we have built-in libraries. We have built-in libraries. Here, suppose another example. So example for built-in class libraries in Java: arithmetic exception, array index out of exception is the general class. All the exception is the base class. Okay, exception is the base class. All the exceptions will come under exception class. So what are all the other exceptions are there? Here, see, exception is the base class. Exception is the base class. Exception is the base class. Under exception, example, first one is array index out of bound exception. This is one class. Then another one is null pointer exception. Null pointer exception. Then array index out of bounds. Then arithmetic exception. Arithmetic exception. Arithmetic exception. So these are all some of the example for exception. This is exact class. Here, instead of giving in this program, when we here we have given exception, so it will cache all the exceptions. Example, if I try to, I have already declared one variable, that is array variable a is equal to 1. Okay, 1 comma 2 comma 3. I have initialized array variable. So it should be like this, array variable. Now what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to assign a of 5 is equal to 20. Okay, a of 5 is equal to 20. So if I try to assign fifth position, so 0 to 5, 0 to 5, that means sixth position I am trying to insert value. But here array size is 3 only, 0 to 2, 0 to 2. So a of 20, a of 5 is equal to 20. Already I handled one exception, so I have given that code inside try block. Now if you try to run this program, what will happen? This program will terminate. See here, it is not for continuing that execution. Why? Because here this is outside try block. So whatever code inside the try block, if exception occurs, abnormal condition occurs, that try block will try to handle. So it will redirect to catch block. Now if I run this program, I am getting this exception, array index out of bounds, index 5 out of bounds for length 3, because this length is 3. This length is 3, but index 5 out of bounds because our length is only 3. So now what I am going to do, suppose if I am assigning a of 2 is equal to 20, the program will not terminate. The program will not terminate. It will execute. Just I have assigned value. If you want, you can print and check the value. You can print and check the value. So system.out.println. So if I give here system.out.println, if you want to print that value, then I can print, okay, a of 2. I can print here value is equal to, if you run this program, the program will work, value 20. So this is normal flow. Okay, suppose if I am trying to assign a of 20, that index is out of bound, a of 5 or a of 4 or a of 6, that is not in our array, a of array index. I want to handle. What I can do, I can give this statement inside try block. I can give this statement inside try block. So what will happen? A of 6 is equal to 20. Okay, a of 6 is equal to 20. Here divide by 0 error I have given. If you want, you can change the value. Now if you run this program, the program will not terminate. Program will not terminate because this exception, that means this exception is base class. Under this exception, we have several subclasses: array index out of bounds, arithmetic exception, null pointer exception, file not found exception. So many exceptions are there. So you can have all the exceptions. So we know that particular exception. This exception is array index out of bound exception. This exception is array index out of bound exception. So what I can give, this arithmetic exception, I can see here, instead of this, I am going to give arithmetic exception. So arithmetic exception is that particular exception. Arithmetic exception is that particular exception. So here it will happen. So now if you run this program, the program will not handle, because array index out of bounds exception. The program will not handle. Why? Because it is telling array index out of bound exception. Then after that, it is continuing this normal flow because it is inside try block. Catch block we have, it handle that exception. It is following the continuous this one. But it will not, it is now what I am going to do. Suppose if you have, we can have try catch block. So many try catch block. So here what I am going to give, one more catch block, catch array index out of bounds exception. Array index out of bound exception. So if you give array index out of bound exception even, I can handle both the exception. I can handle both the exception. You can have multiple catch block. You can have multiple catch block. This is array index out of bound exception. Array index. Give array index. Now if you run this program, it will display both the things. No error. See, array index, it handled the first exception because here exception happened. So it will not continue the further execution. Okay, it will not continue the next statement for execution. So after this, it will redirect this to catch block. It will match with the first catch block. If it is array index out of bounds, it will handle. Otherwise, if you give this as friend, this is order of execution. If you give this first catch array arithmetic exception, it will handle. Okay, this is called a simple thing about exception handling. Then next, one more thing is there, finally block. The third keyword is finally. So what do you mean by finally? Irrespective of that whether exception happened or not, that finally block will execute at the end. So what is the purpose of using finally block? If you are using finally block, at the end of the program, if you want to close file, if you want to close some connection, if you want to do some cleanup operations, if you want to do some cleanup operation, such kind of code can be included finally block, irrespective of exception occurred or not. Then whatever may be the situation, the finally block will execute at the end. In a thing, if you have try block, you should have only one finally block. You should not have more than one finally block. See here, I have arithmetic exception. I handle the exception. I am going to give finally block. Finally, okay. So here I am going to display. This is finally block. This is finally block. So whether exception occurs or not, okay, whether we are handling the exception or not, suppose if you are not handling the exception, here both the things are there. I'll remove this array index out of bound exception. Okay, I'll remove this one. I'm going to remove this one. Okay, now this is arithmetic exception, but I'm not going to handle arithmetic exception. I'm going to catch array index out of bounds. Now it will not catch the exception. If I run this, what will happen? See here, I'll make this as comment line, otherwise I'll remove this code. You can see the difference. You can see the difference. Here I have try block. Within inside that, what is that exception? Arithmetic exception will happen. So if I am giving here exception, it will handle. But I have given specific array index out of bound exception. So what will happen? If I run this program, it will show that exception. System. See, exception. It is telling arithmetic exception. So it is showing that arithmetic exception. So now what will happen? If I run this program, if I have this finally block here, not finally here, if I give only exception, if I give arithmetic, otherwise arithmetic exception I will give, arithmetic exception, it will handle that specific exception, right? It will handle that exception, arithmetic exception, run. It will not show you any error. Why? Because this is arithmetic exception. So if you give array index out of bound exception, it will not handle. If I give general class exception, exception will come under That arithmetic exception will come under exception because exception is a base class. If I run now, it will handle the exception. Whether it is array index out of bounds exception or null pointer exception, it will handle all kind of exception. If I am giving finally block, if I am giving finally block at the end, irrespective of whether that exception happens or not, the finally block will execute at the end once. Here, this is finally block. So if I run this program before hello world, this finally block will be executed after try catch. Suppose there is no exception. If there is no exception, if I am giving 5, exception will not happen, right? In this code, exception will not happen. Why? Because 45 by 5. So a try block, it will execute. It will display the result 9. Then, but whether exception is happening or not, finally block at the after catch block, finally block will be executed. But we should have only multiple catch block you can have. But we should have only one finally block. If you are trying to have one more finally block 1, this is finally block 2. If I am trying to add catch block, I can have one more catch block also here. It will not give you error. See, if I am trying to run this, it will show you error finally without try. Finally without try. Because one try block should have only one finally block. Only one finally block. I can have multiple try block in a single block. Try, okay, try, catch block. If you have one try block, we should have, this is multiple try catch block. You can have a single program. Try catch block. So here I am going to give, you have to pass exception, the same thing, whatever we have discussed already. Okay, this is try, the corresponding catch block. Then here I am going to give system.out.println something. If you are not giving also it will work. Okay, this is exception. So try catch block. Now if you run this program, I have one try block. Okay, trying to print system.out.second try. I'll write second try block. This is second catch block. Second catch block. If you run this program, it will work. Because I have one, this one will execute because exception is not happening. So it will execute this one. Then it will come here to, it will not throw that exception to catch block because there is no exception. So here system.out.println hello world will display. Suppose if I have one more catch block, it will work. Suppose I have one more finally block. Okay, you can have one more finally block. This is finally block 2. So for each try can have one finally block. Okay, this is the, I think you all understood the concept of exception handling in Java. What is try block, what is catch block, what is finally block, then multiple try catch block, then what is the use of finally block. Then now we are going to see throws class. Okay, this is try catch finally throws keyword. 5 things are there. So try keyword is we have already discussed. Catch also we have discussed. Finally, the next one is throw and throws. Then throw keyword is used to throw an exception. Throws keyword is used to declare exception. So throw keyword is used to throw an exception. From the name itself, throw, it will throw an exception. Then next one is throws keyword. You can declare exception. So you can declare exception in the sense you can specify that there may occur an exception in the method. You can create method. While defining method, that method may generate exception. For those kind of method, you can declare exception. So you can't throw that exception in method. So that throws means it is always used with method signature. We'll discuss this in coming. So here throws exception. Throws exception. I'll show you one simple demo of throw exception. Throw demo. So this is the example program. Okay, this is the example program for throw. This is the when you look into this program, we have a class called Java throw demo. Throw means it will throw exception. You can throw exception. So public void vote eligible age. I have a method called vote eligible age. In general, eligibility of a person to vote in the election in India is above 18. If you are below 18, you are not eligible. This is a simple program to demonstrate throw. So public class Java throw demo is the class. Then I have created a method called void eligible age. This is simple method. Method return type is void. We are not going to return anything. This method we have one argument, that parameter we are going to pass integer parameter. Integer as parameter, number we are going to pass. So return type is void. Then method is public, access specifier is public. So in this I am going to check if age less than 18, not eligible for voting. Else system.out.println eligible for voting. This is the two things I am going to do. So if that number is less than 18, age less than 18, I am going to throw exception. I am going to handle that situation. Okay. So using throw. So throw in the sense you can throw exception. Here in main method, I have created object for this class Java throw demo. Obj is equal to new Java throw demo. I have created object name called obj. I am going to call this method obj old eligible age. Suppose if I am giving age is 20, so I am going to run this program. The program will work perfectly. Okay. Error Java. Some error is there. So now it is perfectly working. This is normal program. This is normal program. If age less than this one, okay, I'll take this. I'm not going to do anything. So here system.out.println not eligible. Not eligible. Okay. If I run this program will work because eligible for voting. So I am calling that method using object.vote eligible 20. If I am giving 18, run, which one will display? Eligible for voting, because age less than or equal. This is, I am giving 10, not 20. Eligible for voting. Suppose I am giving 16. Not eligible for voting. Less than or equal to, you can give the condition. So now I am going to handle this situation using exception. The same thing you can do it with if else. So this is a simple example to understand some situation to handle those kind of situation. So I am going to use arithmetic exception. So I am going to use arithmetic exception. Already built-in libraries are available in Java. Arithmetic exception will come under exception class. So I can use this class. Okay. So if age less than 18, throw new arithmetic exception. Suppose I am giving age as 20 also, this one will work fine. This one will work fine. Eligible for voting. 20 means eligible for voting, end of program. Now, suppose I am passing this value as 17. Run this program. So what will happen? Throw new arithmetic exception. That means using this throw keyword, I am going to throw an exception. Okay, I am going to throw an exception, arithmetic exception. Just I am throwing the exception, that's all. That's why it is showing this one. If you want, you can use try catch block to handle this exception. You can use try catch block and you can handle this exception after throwing this exception. You can handle. Okay, what you have to do? Now this is simple. Simply I'm throwing the exception. Throw that exception. That means if age is less than 18, throw new arithmetic exception. By default, compiler will handle exception threadmine java.language.arithmetic exception not eligible for voting. So it is displaying this value not eligible for voting. So it is showing this one. So it is showing in line number 13 that exception occurs because we are calling that method. Now what I can do, I can handle this exception using try block. So that block is inside try. If I am writing cache block, so I am going to handle arithmetic exception. Okay, arithmetic exception, E, some reference you can give, object reference. So I am going to handle that exception. So system.out.println, I handle that exception. It will now terminate the program because system.out.println end of the program should display. If you throw that exception, it will terminate, it will throw the exception and it will terminate. So system.out.println, here I am going to handle the exception. Handle exception. Great. Okay. Now if you run this program, see, throw is used to throw an exception. You can throw exception. Another example is, suppose if I am creating user-defined exception. You can create user-defined exception, depends on the situation. That time you can throw such kind of exception. So here, handle that exception, then end of the program. That means sequential execution. After handling that exception, it is following sequential execution. So it will execute the next statement. It is executing and it will show end of program. In the previous one, we didn't handle using try catch. Generally, we used throw only, throw the exception. This is example for throw. Then another example for throws. So how we are going to handle that throws exception? So here throws exception. So this is example for throws. So we are discussing only with arithmetic exception. If we discuss the same thing, then we will understand better. So this is simple basic concepts. If you understand basic concepts, then next you can develop on that. So that's why I am giving all the simple example to understand the concepts. Here public class Java throw demo. So I have a class called division demo method. So I am passing two parameters int a and b, a by b. So throws. Here what? Throws means we have already discussed. Throw means method signature. You are going to declare exception. What you are going to do? You are going to declare exception. Okay, you are going to declare exception. The throw keyword is used to throw an exception, but throws keyword is used to declare exception. It is always used with method signature. You should remember it specified that there may occur an exception in the method. If you have written method, if you are predicting that sometimes exception may occur within that method, some logic we would have used. Here we have used division. In that division, what kind of exception can occur? That is called arithmetic exception may occur if I pass b value as 0. So this is general thing. So I have created object for Java throw demo. Then I am trying to call that method by passing 15, 20. Two values I am going to pass. 15, 15. Now no exception, nothing. But suppose I am passing the second argument as 0. Now it is displaying fine. Program is working fine, no exception, nothing. So no need to worry. Now what I am going to do, suppose in case if I am passing 0, that means second value as 0 divided by 0. That is 15 divided by 0. 0, you should not divide by 0. So exception may occur. So I want to handle that exception. So I have written method. This method may cause exception. So I am going to use throws keyword. What kind of exception I am going to throw? Throws arithmetic exception. Throws arithmetic exception. The arithmetic exception. So throws keyword is used along with method signature. It is important. It is used along with method signature. Then after this throws that if any exception occurs, it will throws. Then try catch block as usual. It will handle that exception. That's all about exception handling, the basic exception handling in Java. Then one more thing I have already told, some user-defined exception. User-defined exception. So what do you mean by user-defined exception? That is custom exception or user-defined exception. User can create exception. So we can create exception class. So Java custom exception is the exception class. Okay. Java custom exception is an exception class. So how to create a class in Java? Using class keyword, class name. This is general syntax. So if you want to create your own exception class, this is exception class. If you are already I have exception class. This is inheritance concept. I can extend exception class. Then I can make use of methods and variable inside that exception class. So here how to create exception class, class name, extends exception. This is exception class I have created. I have created exception class. This is simple. I have created, I didn't do anything, I didn't define anything. Okay, just I have created one exception class. Then next what I am going to do, I have created one Java class. Then I have main method inside that. I am going to create object for this exception. Okay, my own exception, new my own exception. I am going to use try catch block. We have already used built-in exception that is called arithmetic exception. So that block, that code may generate arithmetic exception. For that I have used throw new arithmetic exception in the previous example using throw keyword. The same thing here I have created one exception class. Then the class name is my own exception. I have created object for that. Then I'm trying to throw that exception. Throw new, the same class you have to use my own exception. Okay, throw is used to create a new exception and throw it. Okay, then catch own exception. Now if you run this exception, line number 6, sorry, it is equal to, if you are not using this also will work. We are not going to do anything. See, nothing I didn't write anything inside that code. Depends on our logic, we can write some exception and other things. I have created custom exception, user-defined exception. How to create user-defined exception? Extending exception class. This is one class. Here what I am going to do, I have already created one class with main method. Here I am using try catch block. I am throwing this user created exception class. So throw new my own exception. Then catch exception. I'm catching that exception. So it is throwing that exception. I'm handling that exception. So it is displaying value. This is simple basic things about custom exception. So I think you understood basic concepts of exception handling in Java. This is for beginners. They can try with these codes. They can try to execute these code. They will get familiarization with those concepts. Thank you.